Hi guys, welcome to Art Talk with April, Season 3. I'm April Harris of Inked April, located in Birmingham, Alabama. We have some wonderfully inspiring artists on this season. Let's get started. Hi everyone, welcome to Art Talk with April. So today we're talking with Dan Tipton, and he is a figure artist, art instructor, and illustrator.
Yeah.
Right? So how did you get interested in art? Did you start this as a kid or older in life, or how did you come about getting started?
I think my initial interest in art came from my grandmother, actually. I remember when I was maybe 7, 8 years old or so, she would we'd sit down and draw together. And just my grandfather, I remember them having these old rifles that he hung up on the wall for some reason. But I remember drawing those with my grandmother. So my original interest came from her, and I maybe showed some kind of aptitude for it.
Yeah.
And just I became the artist of the family, I guess. And I got okay in high school. Every art class I could take in high school, I did, and so I just kind of became known as that. And then I ended up going to an art college. Yeah, I grew up up north in Maryland mostly, and then I went to college in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, to a school called Pennsylvania College of Art and Design, and I earned my bachelor's of fine arts there. And I graduated now almost 21 years ago now. So 2002.
How long have you been in Alabama?
When I graduated college, I became interested in a Christian missionary organization called Youth with a Mission that was based out of Texas. And I decided to go do their training and work with them right out of college in 2002. I met my wife there. We were married by 2004. So we worked with them for about 5 years, and I did some graphic design and some other things for them. And it got to the point where we had 2 kids and didn't have any money. So we decided to come back to Alabama, where she's from. So she's from where we used to live. We just moved actually up to the Gadsden area, but we used to live in Odenville, if you know where that's at.
Yeah.
And she grew up there. So we decided that's how I landed in Alabama.
Okay.
So all that to say, we've now been back in Alabama right at like 13, 14 years. We came back at the end of 2009.
Oh, I see. I gotcha. And so you're actually trying to do your art full time now, right?
Yes, I am. I'm doing everything I can to. Yeah.
And you have such beautiful work, honestly. And I love like the cross hatching aspects of it. And then you've been doing paintings, digital, you've got some landscapes, some portraits, you're doing all these different things. How did you come about being drawn to this specific form of art that you're working on? It seems like you're using a lot of different mediums.
I've always been, even in college, I've always been fascinated with mixing different mediums together and seeing what results I can get. That might be also to my lack of knowledge of actual painting knowledge. Mm-hmm. We studied drawing. In college, I was an illustration major, and we studied drawing a lot, even though I've taught myself a lot about drawing since college. But there was a focus in that major on drawing, and we did paint, but the school I went to didn't necessarily teach us how to paint. So a lot of times when I mix media like that is sometimes exist on top of drawings, because just me personally, I need that to be able to get the result that I want. And unless you're talking about like So this past year I got into plein air painting, and for those that don't know what that is, but is just a fancy way for saying painting outside in one sitting. So I love the outdoors. I love being outdoors, and I love the challenge of being having, you know, maybe only an hour and a half to complete a painting, because that's about all you get in a plein air painting before things change. A long answer to say I have a fascination for seeing how things can mix, but then when I start to mix paint over top of a drawing, or just a little bit of color or something like that, sometimes it's just a lack of knowledge, really, and I'm disguising it in a nice way.
I don't know, like, I love that you do it that way because I feel like even, you know, through talking with lots of different artists that do lots of different things, there's always a point where they're like using their knowledge from school or whatever, you know, that some class or something. And then at a certain point, they start experimenting and, you know, getting outside the lines and trying to see what works with other things. And that's all part of it to me, you know, like,
Also, too, I do love to experiment. I mean, it's you know, I'll come up with one technique, and then it's not long before I say, I wonder what happens if I do this. And for recently, for the past you know, maybe 2 years or so, I love ink. I love. You were talking about the cross hatching. I mean, that's my pen method. That's my inking method, and that's sort of a go between because ink itself is a wet medium.
mm,
Uh, and when you think of painting, you think of wet mediums, but ink has always been considered a drawing medium. So ink is sort of a in between of drawing and painting. Uh, and that's kind of how I view it. So it kind of always goes back to that.
mm,
But a lot of my experiments, you know, like I'll experiment with something or whatever, you know, different technique with inking, or adding different colors in, with even putting oil paint over top of ink, or you know, different techniques or whatever, just to see, you know, because it's not long before I'm a curious person. It is also that I'm a curious person. I just, you know, I like to see, I wonder if I can do this with that, you know, or I wonder if I can, you know, I wonder if oil paint will eat through this paper, or what happens if I put it on a board, and what happens if I draw with ink on top of a board, and then can I put oil paint over top of it? How does it look? Or, you know,
yeah.
uh, and a lot of experiments. I've had a lot of experiments go wrong, you know, but like it's also just I'm just a curious person, and it's just the fun of you know, doing it and saying, hey, that worked out, that looks
Yeah.
freaking fabulous. And then sometimes, well, that got, you know, that got messed up, let's not do that again.
Oh, it's
Oh,
awesome. Are you like, so like, I know because you're experimenting and everything and you're very curious. Do you have a favorite right now? Like the thing that you're like really excited about doing more with?
because I haven't had a studio in quite a while, probably about my favorite right now is, maybe because I have the limitations of whatever I can carry around with me, is just my quick sketching that I do. So like I'll carry and I actually brought these out, but I have these little sketchbooks that I carry around. But I love these like ornate covers and everything, but these are like handmade papers in here. I mean, I'll do quick sketches of unposed people. So, you know, like I'll go in a restaurant and I'll sketch somebody that doesn't know I'm sketching them.
Yeah.
Or I'm constantly sketching my wife. You know, she'll be looking like just, she's just gotten to the point. She used to try to sit still for me. And I was like, just do whatever you're going to do. Because again, it's the challenge of being able to see if I can get it. You know what I mean? I just like that challenge. So sometimes they come out, sometimes they don't come out. And it's just
Yeah.
the challenge. Like, can I get this? You know, can I get the essence of what I'm feeling in that moment? Just
Mhm.
look at my wife, or looking at this guy, and that I did in Cracker Barrel the other day or something like that. So I'll do that with ink all the time. Because and one of the reasons why I like ink is because it's so immediate. Whereas like graphite, you have to layer on top of layer on top of layer, and I just, part of me doesn't have the patience to do that.
Yeah.
And I want, and so ink is very immediate. You lay down a line, and you can't take that sucker back. You got to live with it. So it's either right, or or it's either the way that you wanted it, or it's not, and then you got to figure out how to make it work. So I like that. I like the challenge.
Yeah. What kind of are you using? Like, I think you said you were using pens. What kind of pens are you using?
I have a plethora of pens. Big bag, like the big pencil bags.
Yeah.
Carry around. For my quick sketching, I like to use a fountain pen. A quick example. So this is one I did of my wife.
Oh wow. Yeah.
And like I initially sketched it out, and so I'll initially sketch it out in a fountain pen with brown ink, and then I've been starting to use these Faber-Castell ink markers. They're kind of like coasters, and you can layer them over top of one another. Again, kind of a go-between of drawing and painting, because those markers later, like you could layer sort of like watercolor. And then I'll, like in the darker areas, I have an ink wash mark pen. So it's like they call it a water pen. So it's meant to be filled up with watercolor. But I just put my ink, I drop some
wow,
archival ink in there and mix it with water and make an ink wash basically real quick on the go. So I'll use those pens. I use a lot of Faber-Castell, or I guess it's pronounced Faber-Castell, felt tip pens. I use their brush pens. Probably my favorite for doing commissions, like really long drawings of portraits or whatever, is the Faber-Castell pens, because I can get some very nice detailed hatch work, like you were saying. And so I'll start with their burnt umber. That's kind of on a tan tone paper for commissions. They have what they call a warm gray, which is like a really dark gray, and I'll layer that over top of my dark areas. And then something that I want like really dark, I'll go ahead and put a black. I wait to the very end to put my blacks in, and then use a white India ink for my white. So a lot of times, and I have various ways of applying the white. I've gone through, I don't know, a ton of different ways of doing that, from applying it with a brush, to applying it with a quill pen, to applying it with one of those brush pen. I mean, I've gone through a ton of ways to apply white ink, and it's just kind of the trying to get to the perfect technique of what I want things to look. That makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. It totally makes sense. That is really cool. Yeah, I didn't even know that there were a ton of white inks. That's awesome. I think it's really interesting to hear how other artists do things. Like you said, like you're experimenting outside of the norm or what we're taught, and so that is super interesting. That makes you think, okay, how can I experiment more in what I'm doing, and I mean, I'm already thinking, okay, I need to go shopping for some white ink. I need to try out some different nib pens, like I'm really excited.
$1,000 worth of pens if you want.
Oh, it's awesome.
This is my journal. So I also like and my notebook. So, but like, this is a handmade paper.
Yeah. Does it have texture to it?
Well, it's really smooth. So, but like a different kind of handmade paper in this one. So, I mean, the pen moves differently. It just, wash. And then there's a different kind of paper in this one. So what kind of paper do I like best? What kind of, what kind of am I in the mood for sometimes? I mean, like this kind of paper, it's kind of really smooth. It wouldn't take a very good wash. So I know not to use it. So if I want to do wash stuff, I shouldn't use that, but
Yeah, you need something thicker.
yeah, but, just experimenting around and figuring out what it is I want to do, or sometimes I limit my materials just to see if I can do it. Sometimes
Nice.
I'll go to, like I'll only have this and a wash pen, and just to see if I can do it, or see how I could do it. I mean, art for me is it's got to stay fresh. Like I don't think I'd ever just be. I don't ever want to be like kind of, although I do love ink, I don't want to be ever pigeonholed into being like the guy who draws in ink and is great at hatching, or the guy
Oh,
who
yeah.
are only an oil painter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or I think I'd become bored like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I've always wondered about that, like, in professionally, like, in the gallery type setting, like the upper end, they kind of tell you to do the same thing over and over, like get your style or your medium or whatever. That
Yeah.
seems so boring.
Yeah, there is sort of a I don't know if you ever saw my belly dancer series.
Yeah.
There's three main drawings that I had, and then I had like a little animal series this past year that was kind of in that same style, where I was drawing these large form drawings. I mean, they were 18 by 24. I think I did one 20 by 36, and for a pen, that's a freaking huge drawing.
Yeah, it is.
Another one of my curiosities is balancing the aspect of drawing and painting, so mixing those two and seeing where they can land together and work together. But then also drawing in monochrome color. So I like to draw in brown. I just like that earth kind of warm color.
Yeah.
So balancing that monochrome with like these bright colors. So like like some of my previous work this past year, it was mostly monochrome with the drawing, but then I would add in like these really vibrant chromatic colors, just kind of like just a little, like a little bit here, a little bit here.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of fascinated with like how much is too much, how much is too little, where's the balance, you know?
Yeah.
I don't really necessarily subscribe to the yin yang kind of theory or whatever, but I do believe that there's a balance in life, kind of all over life. I do kind of have that consistent style in the galleries that I do currently work with. The galleries that I work with now are local galleries, and they're run by other artists. So, they're like, bring in what you're gonna bring in, we're here to support each other, and that's what's great about the galleries that I work in right now, because
Yeah.
they're there to support each other, to sell their own work and to sell my work, and then they're there to help each other do better. So like if I want to enter a plein air painting or something like that, which I haven't necessarily, though I've sold plein air paintings, they only request that they see,
Yeah.
that it gets approved before I put it in, then that's fine, because they don't want crap hanging on the wall, for back, so
Yeah.
uh, and I understand that, and they want to maintain a level of professionality. It's the Artists Incorporated Gallery in, if you know where the Shops at Grand River is.
Yeah. Mhm.
uh, that's one I work with, and I work with the Good Art Company in Bessemer.
Yeah. Yeah, both great
They're
places. So you mentioned earlier about your commissions. So what is the process like, if someone's interested in getting a commission from you, what's your process to go through that? Like, how do they contact you, and what kind of commissions do you do or take?
Tell you my favorite ones
Yeah.
are, I do love portraiture, but I don't like finicky people, if that makes sense. People uh people that want to be, what I mean by finicky people is that people that kind of want to be in control of the whole thing. And I'm sort of the mindset of, and I'm happy to do their projects, but if you're gonna but you came to me because you obviously saw something in my art that you want to have,
Yeah.
and if you want to have control over over how I do the art, then that I'm not going to take your commission. So right off the bat, if they want me to do something out of the preview of what I do. So for instance, I had one lady come to me and ask me to do a caricature of, I think her, something like that or whatever. And I just don't do caricatures.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with them. I think there's some great caricature artists,
Absolutely.
but I sent her to my website, my social media, and I said to her, "Have you seen my work?" Because none of it's character.
Yeah.
I do kind of, traditional style portraits. And then she insisted that I do the caricature of her niece or whatever. And I said, I just don't do that. I know some people that do. I'd love to give you their number.
Yeah.
Would you like their number? So if it's something that I don't do, that it's out of the preview of what I do or whatever, I would gladly hand another artist a job,
Oh yeah.
if they like to take it. So right off the bat, it's got to be within the preview of what I do. And I do a significant amount, but if it's out of the preview of what I do, I'm not going to try to take it, because it wouldn't be fair to you if I, for lack of better words, fuck it up.
Well, it's like,
it would,
can you do a comic book style portrait? That's not that's not your wheelhouse. That's not what you're doing. So
or manga. I had one ask me to do some kind of manga character. I'm like, there's some fabulous artists that do that. I'm not one of them. I can't do that. So it's not fair to them or me, because I'm trying to make something up that I'm trying to learn something on the fly, and I just I can't do that. So right off the bat, it's got to be within what I do,
Sure.
And then that, as far as contacting me, I get a lot of people just in my daily life. So another thing I do, like I was showing you my sketchbooks. I carry these sketchbooks everywhere. I mean, and I'm constantly sketching.
That's awesome.
I've gotten a handful of portrait commissions just from that. People walk up and see me doing it and whatever, and they ask me how much I charge, and then I send them, look at either, like Facebook or my Instagram or my website.
Yeah.
And I say, look at my more finished formal work. And if you want that, then here's my number, or my email. So I'm recently trying to put out my email. That way I have record of everything and I can keep up with it. Because text messages are hard to keep track of.
Yeah, absolutely.
I try to do all my communication through email. That way I can just better business practices, better, easier with. And then if they want it, I build them an estimate. They agree to the estimate and the timeline. I invoice them and I start it. I usually ask for a 40% upfront to do it. And, as soon as they pay that 40%, we're in business. I go to it, so, my favorite commissions are ones that are kind of out of the norm. I draw in a very traditional style. So I draw and teach a very traditional style of drawing, a kind of style that maybe Renaissance artists would have used. Up until the hundreds. So it's a very traditional observational style of drawing that I draw in and teach. But my favorite subject matter when it comes to commissions is kind of my current profile on pretty much all my social media is a self-portrait like this, with my face all squinched and whatever. So something different than just these straight on formal portraits is kind of my favorite thing. I recently did a portrait of a local girl Alexandria Ho, and she's somewhat of a punk rock kind of girl.
Yeah.
And she had a shaved head, but it was kind of growing out. But I asked her to get, I kind of did her in a profile with kind of the shaved head, and I had her holding like this piece of candy up with her tongue out and all that and whatever. And you may have seen it on my Facebook or whatever,
I think I did. Yeah.
Stuff like that. Though the way I go about it is very traditional, how I get my results.
Yeah.
But subject matter like that, I find very interesting. I'm probably going to have a heavy focus on teaching this coming year. Currently, I teach twice a week. On Tuesday nights, I teach at the Artists Incorporated Gallery from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. on Tuesday nights there. And my classes everywhere in person that I teach are right now $25 per person per class, which I think is a pretty decent rate for what I teach. I provide any and all supplies that you need for the class. A half set of pencils, an eraser and decent paper. And I provide people with the drawing materials that I would use. And then Wednesday nights from 3 to 7 at the Good Art Company in Bessemer. I did last year start a Patreon page and have subscribers on there. And I was live streaming classes once a week too. I hope to be getting back into that soon. That was only $7 a month when I was doing that. I've found that I enjoy teaching almost as much as I enjoy doing art myself. So
nice.
I have at least right now, I have a big passion for it. And I have a passion for helping people to realize that drawing and painting, sculpture, any craft, any art craft is mainly just a skill. They're skills that you can build up. And, drawing in and of itself. And many people think that, I'm born with that shit. I didn't come.
You were magically an artist.
I mean,
I completely agree. Yeah.
There's a difference between.
But you do a beautiful job. You have beautiful work, and you can see that you've been really spending your time on it, and have developed your talent, your skill through lots of hard work.
I never run out of ideas because I've never stopped doing it, if that makes sense.
That's great, because that's one of those things I think there are a lot of artists who struggle with thinking of what, I don't know if they're intimidated by like the white paper thing and not knowing where to start and that kind of thing. So it's good that you're able to do that. I'm kind of the same way. I just have ideas. I don't know. They're everywhere. I don't know how to not have an idea about it, but
you're kind of doing something every day, I think, right?
Yeah. So how can people get in touch with you?
If you just search my name, Dan Tipton, or Dan Tipton Art, pretty much anywhere on social media. So Instagram, Facebook, I'm on TikTok. So you can get on there and send me a message. My Patreon, Dan Tipton Art. My website is dantiptonart.com.
And you are doing just wonderful, expressive work, and it's just so beautiful. And if anyone listening is interested in commissions or buying Dan's art, please check out his work. It's very cool, very interesting. And thank you so much, Dan, for talking to me today.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Art Talk with April. For more information on this episode, join the Facebook group, The Art Lounge. Please subscribe and share. See you next Tuesday. Hope you have a great week.